Easy E, how are we?
Shawnee, I'm not happy. Well, I am happy, but I'm not happy.
You're either happy or not happy. Are you happy?
Well,
Do you feel
I'm
happy?
I'm happy for you, but I'm not happy that you ran that 5K so quick, you bollocks.
Here's the thing. Before the 5K, I did a 5K in Sandbridge, and it's mostly fat. Great atmosphere. The weather was god awful. It actually wasn't that bad when you're running in it, but it was one of those where you look outside and it just looks absolutely miserable. First 2K is almost downhill, next 2K uphill, and there's a great flat into you go around the track once at the end, which is like the closest I feel I'll ever get to a sub 20 because you pass just to the right of the finish line. So I looked up, I saw 19:30 as I was past the finish line going, I'm after a 5K and passing where I was underneath 20, but then you do a lap around. I came back around 21:15. But before that, um, I did a 5K in June in Castleknock, and I think it was around 22:30. It was my first fast run in a while. And then I was building towards the backyard ultra, and I pulled back after 12 hours to build towards this. I was doing intervals. I'm like, I feel like I should be getting faster, but I was looking at the Garmin watch, and my Garmin for 5 and 10Ks has always maybe 20, 30 seconds. The prediction's been faster than what it is. And then I feel like it's bang on accurate for the half marathon. This time, though, it just wasn't coming down. And it had me at 22 minutes, 22:05 for a 5K. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to train in like 6 weeks for this. I've been doing like you always think you can train more, and I missed a few sessions, but I've been hitting intervals once a week. I've been doing 400 meters or hill sprints or 1K splits and that kind of thing. Even just a couple of days before I did 1K splits, I had a 420 average over three 1K splits and 1K jog, and I felt like death. I was like, race day might be a little bit better, but this whole 22 minutes is and only being 30 seconds fast after 6 weeks is not good. So I took off and I held a 4:10. Oh, sorry, no, maybe a 4:10, 4:15 for the first two downhill. And then I just stopped looking at the watch. I was like, whatever happens, happens, don't care. I started to go uphill. I was like, I'll just go wherever feels comfortable. And for the first time ever in a 5K, I started passing people out with 1K to go. I'm like, not used to this. The last two times I've done it dead, I've been passed out. Like my 5K, the last one was my fastest split, and I got a 4 minute 5K, and I was dead at the end of it. But I got me 21:15, and I'm like, fuck you, Garmin had me down to 22. I checked the predictor the very next day, and it had me down for a 5K PB, having just run a 5K. My prediction was then
22.
22. What's the story with that? I just told her I could do it faster. So we put a little story up on the Instagram just to see if other people were finding it the exact same way. So it had four options on it. Either you find your Garmin race predictor very accurate, in the ballpark most of the time, rarely close or completely useless. Very accurate only had 7%, and then it was almost like a three-way tie, with the most popular being in the ballpark most of the time with 35%, rarely close around 28%, and completely useless 30%. So it's mad though. So I don't know how to feel about it, but like some people message this like it's accurate for this, or I find it's close for this, but like I don't know if it depends on the person, depends on the training, depends on if you're putting in other training with it, how it works. So maybe a rough guide, but then I wouldn't be basically a splits off when it comes to 5 and 10Ks. How do you
I'm
find
just
it?
I'm just look as you were talking, I was like, where do you even find out what it says? Where's your race predictor?
Um, I
Is it
actually
on
don't
the app or
know.
on the watch?
On the match,
Nah, it's not
on me,
showing up for me.
I scroll up to it and I get to
That's how fucking bad I am, Sean. It doesn't even give me an option.
yeah, it actually tells me on one of the options. It goes, it's beside the VO2 max, and I go down and it tells me I'm down to 22:05 for a 5K, 46 minutes for a 10K. I feel like now I'm better than
Oh yeah.
46.
Like go into me training status here. See if there's any rate. Oh, no, that's a lactate threshold test. Oh, I found it. Race predictor. Oh, yeah. Do you know what? It's probably not far off. 23
Okay.
minute 10K, a 5K, a 146 half, a 48-minute 10K, and a 341 marathon. I would say it's there or thereabouts now.
I would
Yeah.
question the marathon one just because you haven't done the distance.
Well, I haven't done the miles, but
You might, yeah. If you try to maybe just the idea
you
because
know,
I find that
if I
myself as
gave it
well.
another if I gave it another couple of weeks, that's realistic for where I am, as I think. But yeah, no, it's No, but then when I get really fit, then it doesn't match at all. It tells me that it's like, oh yeah, you're on for a 250 marathon. I'm like, would you ever?
Speaking
Uh,
of really fit though, you said you're actually we're supposed to record a sit show earlier, and you're like, no, no, I gotta go for a run. And you said run, so I'm assuming it's not just your 4K
yeah.
walking here. Maybe it was, maybe it was the weather like over there. Is that what happened?
So also while I was looking at the race predictor, my Garmin was telling me the weather as it was. We have so what I'm finding is I'm not running a lot. So it's 35 degrees right now and I'm back 2 hours. It was about 39 to 38 and I had to do a 75-minute run. And I was like, oh, how am I gonna fucking do this? So
Oh,
I said it was we got an Uber, me and my roommate, he's training for a marathon as well. We got an Uber to the longest, it holds the Guinness World Record for the longest air conditioned walk slash running track in the world.
right. Indoors, outdoors,
It's outdoors. So you're literally pumping
outdoors,
cold
air
air.
conditioned.
You're pumping cold air just from the ground into the atmosphere, right? So and I didn't know what to expect, but when I got inside, so they built this canopy. I'll put up videos during the week. They built this little
Mm,
canopy, and they're growing all these trees, kind of these crawler trees all around it. So eventually, it will fully enclose with like natural vegetation. And when you're running, you just get these little hits of cold air, and it's actually kind of nice, but it's borderline fucking useless. I ended up with an average of 820 anyway. After, no, do you know what? I'd say it gave me about 20% more because it was a zone two. I was trying to keep my heart rate below 140. Everyone who's done it in Ireland knows how frustrating starting zone two programs are.
mm,
Now just add in the heat, and it's just a different level of frustrating. So the first 15 minutes, I think about 16 minutes, I actually managed to jog, which was really enjoyable. It's the most I've jogged since I've started. And if that's what going all the way there got me, then so be it. After
mhm,
that, it was walk run. I'd get about 400 meters. I'd have to walk two. And then that just kept reversing itself to the point I could only run 200. And then I was walking nearly 800. So it was there. Look, I know everyone's saying just go in and run in the treadmills. I get it, but this
mm,
is hard and it's frustrating, and that's why I'm doing it to see what happens now because like it's coming towards the end of August and we're through the worst of it here. Hopefully the temperatures will start to come down to the low 30s and into the high 20s and just see how we go. The interesting thing for me is my stress load is huge after them runs.
Oh, okay.
Huge after them runs. Yeah, big time. And like it's like I've dived into a swimming pool. I've never sweated so much in my life. It's just it's insane. Like I'm drinking 4 or 5 liters of water a day. And for those who are a bit squeamish, sorry, I haven't seen clear urine since I've started running and I'm drinking 5 or 6 liters of water a day. Like it's bizarre how much
Mm,
sweating and how hard it is and how frustrating it is to be walking along this lovely air conditioned pad, getting little wisps of cold air. Like, ooh, that's nice. Um, but yeah, like I think my average in the end was an 820 per kilometer. But look, still 75 minutes out in the heat and getting a run in. The only things that I'm really feeling, they're probably some of the hardest runs I've done, and that's the intervals and the fartleks. It's just it's on a do you know the way you'd start your run and you wonder, am I gonna get into zone four by the time the minute and a half is up? Within the
mm.
first 10 seconds, you're there. You are at 170. Like it is, and it's so hard. It is so hard. And that my fast sessions, like even on my fart, like I started out, I'll do 4 minutes nice and really slow, like a shuffle, 2 minutes at a decent enough pace. That lasted one round. After the
Right.
second round, I had to go, okay, try 6 minutes. Then I was like, look, just walk for the next 5 minutes and do one more. But like it's borderline, like my heart rate getting up to the 190s on some of these 2 minutes. And I'm walking then for I went for a walk then after. So I stopped me watching the run. I met one of the guys and I walked for 38 or 40 minutes with him. And even on that walk, after doing my training, my heart rate was 142 while I was walking. And I had the heart rate monitor on. I was like, oh man, the goose is cooked. But it's so it's just different. It is tough. And I'm interested just to stick at it stay away from the treadmills from now, although it would be much easier. It would, and I'd probably feel a lot better for myself. But um, yeah, I just for me, especially because working in the heat and going
Yeah.
to and from, I'm coping a lot better with the heat because I've been training in it. So work is not hard anymore. Does that make
But
sense?
yeah, yeah, you're getting a lot, you get more out of it than just running fitness there because that day to day. But when you're doing your fartleks and you say you're goose, are you still finding it really hard to recover based on how you feel or based on heart rate? You do your
Um,
fartleks based on heart
no,
rate at all?
with the last few runs. So I started the marathon plan, which gets me up until Christmas. I started it last week, and I didn't care what my heart rate or anything said. I was holding on for dear life. Like
Okay.
I was holding on to the bottoms of my shorts, going, just don't fall over. Like that's to the level and the intervals I got to, and I was like, yeah, I was just like, I've 6 or 8 of these to do. I was like, how in God's name am I gonna do another two of these? Like it's just it was that level of difficulty. And then the easy runs, they're not hard, but it's
Right.
just really frustrating. It's basically going for a walk, which is the difficult thing. But look, 8 point something kilometers of that temperature, that sweating and shuffling and stuff. I know it will because this isn't my marathon's not in 16 weeks. It's further from that. So this is
Mm.
a my chance to build a base, but
Yeah.
it's annoying. So bad. So bad. The
But there
desert
you
is ruthless.
talk about a tale of two halves. Like I'm kind of like thinking, geez, I need like after Selbridge, I'm like, I need to start doing more. Uh, Not a lot more races because I'm conscious of doing too much again and then just overload. Like every week shouldn't be a race thing like that. But I have a 5 mile loop coming up, and then the end of September I'm gonna do the Nace 10K just because they're really nice to medal and the rub it in your face more so than anything else. And then obviously October in Dublin after that. But just I just feel like you just need to test yourself every now and again because something like a Garmin watch might be 100% or maybe test yourself on a treadmill. I don't know. Just see where you're truly at.
Oh,
For one session. For
if
one
you
session to see
seen
where you're
if you
at.
seen the treadmills in the gym that I have, like I can't even call it a gym.
Okay.
It doesn't really appeal to me.
Right.
To be in that room and the smell and no, it's just
It's
without going into detail, I'd rather shuffle horrendously outside and lock myself in that cage. It's grand for the
it's
weights and you can get in and do 30 minutes and get out, but to put myself in there for 75 minutes now, I think
mm,
it's just a bridge too far. But I think you're right. I think as we get to the end of the summer, there's some fantastic sporting facilities here, like absolutely amazing ones. And I think I will. I think I'll treat myself to a nice day in a pool. I'll go do a test on a treadmill just to see how I am, just for my own mental state, and then so that I know it's actually working or not, and then treat myself to a nice swim or whatever afterwards. So yeah, no, it's good. It is good, but at the same time, physically, I'm looking much better. The weight is can't stay on. Like I'm trying to eat as much as I can, as clean as I can, and it's just the heat is. It's a
mm.
fantastic training aid, and dare I say, I'd be happier to run faster, but I'll miss it when it's gone. It's like even just walking, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired. It's really good.
Well, for those people listening, being like, "Jesus, I'm sick of Eric talking about the heat when we didn't even get a summer. I get to use a barbecue that much and the garden furniture outside." This week's guest, while very inspirational, is probably not going to help you in that respect either because he's doing a lot of his training over in Australia. And one of his Ironmans over in Australia, you'll hear about in this week's episode of the podcast, he set the Irish record for the fastest Ironman. So the bar is set pretty high in this one.
Yeah, and I think it's probably good for those listening to get the average before we listen to this week's guest of what's the expectation of the regular Joe before this week's guest. It's an absolutely amazing episode, and again, it's another one of those we're so lucky to have front row seats to a phenomenal athlete to get their story and understand where they've come from and how well they're doing, and it's a great listen.
And with that said, it's this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. Let's go. So this week on the Any Given Run Day podcast, we have a professional triathlete who has represented Ireland in the junior and senior cup level, podiumed and won numerous races, including the 300k Wild Mayo Ultra, and holds the Irish Ironman record with a phenomenal time of 7 hours, 59 minutes and 4 seconds. Aichlinn O'Reilly, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you getting on?
Oh, Sean, how you doing? Yeah, I'm pretty good now. Just back from a long ride, actually, so I'm a bit tired today, but I had a bit of a horrible bonk there about an hour ago, and I've been forcing food into myself ever since.
You had a horrible bunk, and now you've put with us two quizzing you on your life.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
It doesn't get much better than that.
The
So,
weather just changed on me, and it got cold, and I wasn't prepared for it. And as soon as you get cold, it's like twice as much energy, and I was pretty grim last hour.
Aichlinn, I'm gonna push back a little bit on that one because you're saying it's cold and people are like, we had a bit of a warm spell in Ireland when exactly this recorded, but you're not recording, you're not cycling Ireland at the moment, are you?
No, I'm in Perth in Australia. It's middle of winter here, though.
Yeah, your winters are probably better than our summers right now, so you have no sympathy from me.
It's 15 degrees, like that's pretty cold.
That's miserable. You're dead right.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely misery. You know, us warm weather creatures really understand what it's like to be miserable at 15 degrees. But
yeah.
What we'd like to do is, obviously, your accolades are amazing, and we watched you setting records in terms of the fastest Ironman, Irish Ironman, I suppose. Where did it all start for you? How did you get into this? What was your sporting background growing up?
Yeah, so swimming, I suppose, was my background. So as a kid, like any kid, tried every sport going, played football, rugby, soccer, anything like that I could possibly do. But swimming was the one that just stuck out for me. I wasn't blessed with good hand-eye coordination. So any ball sports I always found a bit difficult. And swimming was just sort of came naturally to me. So I joined the swimming club when I was 8 and progressed from there to racing nationals when I was about 15, 16. And I was like racing, I was qualifying for senior nationals when I was about 16. And I realized around that time that I was like never gonna make it as a swimmer. I was a decent swimmer, but compared to the good swimmers, like I was nowhere near the level. And I was like, okay, let's see what I do next. And I was lucky that I was actually from the same town as Con Doherty. So I'm sure a lot of people would know him. And he was the top Irish triathlete at the time. And I saw what he was doing. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give triathlon a go. And
I'll just give it a go.
That was it. It was pretty good timing for me, I think. So when I wanted to start it, Triathlon Ireland were running what they call Talent ID days. And their whole focus was to bring people from mainly a swimming background, but also a running background into triathlon. And so you went up to Greystones in Wicklow and did a swimming time trial and a running time trial. And you got points based on your times. And if you got enough points, then you'd be invited to the junior high performance squad. And I just went up with having done very little run training, but doing a lot of swimming. And I think on the day I had the fastest swim. I think I had one of the fastest swims they'd ever had. Like I did 2:04 for 200 meters front crawl.
Wow, so that is quick.
It's a pretty good swim. It's to this day, it's the fastest I've ever gone for 200 meters.
You must have really wanted to be a triathlete.
I don't know how it just sort of all fell in place. And then from there, I got given a coach, and Elena Maslova was my coach, and just started following a training plan. And it sort of spiraled from there with like no real plan to race elite, but I just sort of ended up doing it.
How different is triathlons to swimming? Like we had Mary O'Donnell on the podcast there last week, and she said similar things to you. Like she was around that age when she realized, oh, if I'm going to be elite swimming, like there's just a completely different level. It just seems so. I almost want to say, like, I don't know, modest, level-headed is the right term, or it's just that fact of just that gap seems to be from like such a high level. You're like, for example, you went to Greystones and you were the fastest swimmer easily. yet there was this gap to the next level of swimming. That just seems bananas to me.
Yeah, I think swimming's not like any other sport. So you can say an intermediate level runner could go out and run with an elite runner and in a training session not embarrass themselves. They could keep up for a certain amount of time. Same with special with cycling, like an intermediate level cyclist could go out with the pros and stick with them for a reasonable amount of time unless the pro is absolutely hammering it. But swimming, it's a mix of, I think, because swimming is such a technical sport.
Yeah.
It's not about it's a mix of, yes, you need to be super fit, but it's so technical. And if you don't have that technique, then you're just totally left behind. And the top guys are just totally different level. It's like incomprehensible how good the top guys are. It's like I've swam all my life, and I can get into nearly any swimming pool in the world, and if I just get in, I'm the fastest swimmer in that pool. And then if I swim with decent, try to swim with a high performance swimmer, it look like I barely know how to swim. They just leave me for dust. And it's like, yeah, it's just, I can't quite understand it. Like, that's why I'm obviously not a swimmer, because it's just like, it's a strange sport, like, yeah.
Is it frustrating as well as humbling, or what way does it work? Because obviously when you play a team sport, you can blame the goalkeeper, you can blame the centre half, you can blame everyone else but yourself, and so will your parents. But when it comes to individual sports, how do you deal with that element of redlining and still seeing someone gracefully kicking on past you? How do you motivate yourself year on year in the training plan to get faster? You know, we see with certain golfers, and I know this is a total thing, they might change their swing because other golfers were out driving them, and then they put on more size to get a stronger drive to try and find different percentages that are basically just the ego of standing on the tee box next to someone else. Like triathlon, obviously swimming as well, you realize at a young age, I'm not going to compete with these guys. How do you then keep showing up year on year to go, okay, what can I do this year? Or what can I do next year? What can I change? Is it similar? Is it humbling? Or is it just you enjoy it and keep showing up?
Well, yeah, I suppose like it's humbling, yeah, but like in my mind, I quit swimming. Like, I know I moved into triathlon, but it's like swimming for triathlon is completely different to swimming for swimming. Mainly, the main thing is triathlon is open water. And then it's also, especially when you move up to distances, it's a lot longer than anything that I've ever competed at in the pool. So the longest pool event is 1,500, whereas like an Ironman is 3.8K. And the main difference, I'd say, with swimming for triathlon is, for an Ironman, you're trying to swim, say pro Ironman, I'm just trying to swim like around the 47 minute, which is like 1:16 pace.
Oh
But
my
you want
God.
to do that as easy as
Sean can barely walk at that pace. Never mind swimming it.
Yeah, that's the thing though. It's about swimming at that pace as easy as possible. Whereas when you're swimming competitively, it's about swimming as fast as possible. So the top guys, like the top elite swimmers, are swimming sub 1 minute swimming about 1 minute flat for 10K open water. But then, say in the Ironman, the top swimmers might be able to swim if they really pushed it super hard, they might be able to swim like hold average 110s for the Ironman. But then that's them cooked, and they obviously can't go on and do the bike and run. But then if you want to be able to hold like 115s, 116s, cruising. And it's that finding that level of swimming as close to your max as possible, but being in control and comfortable at the same time.
Is it true then, obviously, swimming was your background and you have a fantastic foundation. To be talking about them times and being comfortable is incomprehensible to me. I know I will never, because the foundation isn't there, I'll never reach them times. I'd be lucky to hit a 140. That would be an aspiration. But
when you took on cycling as a new sport, obviously 16, you were still in developmental years. You were still quite young as a triathlete. Did you
Yeah.
find that you picked them up quite quickly to get into those 10,000 hours to bring up? But obviously you have, your times are excellent. But how did you find those new sports and seeing the progressions really, really quickly?
Yeah, so I think when I first started running was the one I noticed progression in quickly. So I went from doing like being able to just under 20-minute 5K to doing a low 16-minute 5K in space probably about a year.
Wow.
Once I started training, because my run training used to be, I lived, so say where I lived, there was a 7K loop, and maybe once a week I'd put on my running shoes. I lived at the top of a hill, so I'd always start off on a downhill, and I just smashed it as hard as I could. And I'd usually get about 5K around and be dying and then hang on for the last 2K. And that was my run training from maybe 14 to 16, once a week, maybe once even every 2, 3 weeks. And then once I started following proper structured training plan, doing easy runs, doing structured sessions, I noticed my run times came down rapid. And then took the bike a bit longer, probably because biking is strength as well as fitness. So I was already really fit from swimming, and that's something swimming's brilliant for, is an overall level of general fitness. And then biking just took a little bit longer. And I think biking takes time. You need to put in the hours, get the long ride in 3 hours plus on a weekend, and as well as doing the intervals. And then I actually got injured when I was in, it would have been when I was in 50th. So basically, pretty much a year after I started triathlon, I got injured. I got a stress fracture in my foot. And that was when, coming back from that, because I obviously had quite a bit of time off running, I noticed my biking got a lot stronger then. And probably my running has never quite recovered. 10 years later, and I still haven't hit the same times.
When you look at it, and because of the distance you're talking with, the 5K time of the low 16 minutes is phenomenal. It's absolutely excellent. But in the distance you're looking at and the distance you're covering, where is the race won and lost? And does that come into the whole, which is worth more in terms of the time? If your cycle is stronger, and this is, I suppose, part of the tactics of the long distance triathlon.
Yeah.
And how do you think of yourself as this athlete, the swimmer, the cyclist, the runner, or is it just a combination of it all?
Yeah, so I would say pro Ironman is a totally different sport to age group Ironman, mainly because you have to, like, the benefit of racing in a pack. So obviously on the bike, it's non-drafting, you leave 12 meters. But I'll start with swim anyway. So say in swim, I don't think any other sport that's 8 hours, that if the race is 8 hours long, you'd start with a 3 minute all-out effort. And it's only on the pro level it's only on the pro level that you do that, and that's to get in the swim pack. Because once you're in the swim pack, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to lose the pack that you're in. Because say when you're sitting on someone's feet, especially if you're third or fourth in line, you could be using 10 to 15% less energy than the person on the front. And so the benefits of swimming in a pack are enormous. Not quite as beneficial as cycling in a pack. Like I'm sure so many people here go out on a group ride, and you can notice, say, when you're at the back, you're cruising, and then you have to do your turn on the front, and all of a sudden you're gasping. It's similar to that when you're swimming, especially when you swim, the faster you swim, the more beneficial it is. So like I said, we're swimming about 1:15 to 1:16 pace, and that's an enormous benefit. Whereas if you swim about 1:45 pace, it wouldn't be as noticeable. It's definitely still beneficial, but it's not as noticeable.
In the pro, how aggressive is that swimming pack you're in? Because I've heard Eric talk about, he's down in triathlon and stuff, and always getting kicked in the face, and like I can't even comment on whether he wants to swing or not for the other person, stuff like that, in case he gets charges brought against him. But like, is
Ground
it
him.
There we go. I don't know why I couldn't comment on it. You just outright said it. But like how when you're in that pack, that swim pack, is it because you're all at a pro level, it's a little bit different getting there? Or is it just like just tooting now, trying to scrap and claw for good positioning?
Yeah, so I've not done enough pro Ironmans to know for sure. So I've only done one full distance Ironman at pro level, and there was 8 of us in the front pack, and you get separated instantly. So people pretty much know what pack they're going to end up in, and there's not that much. But I remember back in my junior days racing, draft legal racing, it was carnage. It was absolutely amazing. It was, yeah, dunking, fighting tooth and nail to get in front of the person beside you, because if someone let feet go, you could be out of the race. Like scratching, I've had people pull down my wetsuit on me before, so someone somehow managed to get hold of my zipper and just yanked it all the way down. It's absolute mayhem in the draft legal. But once you get to pro Ironman level, because there's not quite as many people, it's a little bit calmer. And luckily, I have the speed to sort of get me out the front pretty quick and away from the mayhem.
At what race during the whole point you're getting pulled down by a zipper? I'm sure you've had a couple of near calls on cycling and everything else. At what point or what race is there a definitive moment where you went, I'm going to go for the pro license? This race solidifies that I can take this to the next level and really, really pursue it like you have.
Yeah, I suppose so. I was racing the draft legal up until about 2016, and I was on the Irish. Like, I suppose when I moved from junior to senior, I didn't get onto the senior high performance. It was the development squad I was on more so. And I still had aspirations of making it, say, maybe trying to go to the Olympics or something. And then I realized in 2016 that, like, I maybe could have, but I sort of preferred the longer stuff. I was realizing going out for a long ride is where I got the enjoyment from. So I raced in 2017. I did my first year of, say, racing non-drafting, and I did 5 half Ironman distances. And it wasn't one moment. I suppose it was a culmination of all them races. So there wasn't one particular race that I went, yeah, this is definitely want to race pro. But in each race, there was something that went well. And I was like, after the season, I was like, yeah, I should be good enough to go race pro. But then it took me a long time to actually go race pro. So I did take out my pro license in 2018 and only raced one race. And then I actually took a break from triathlon in 2018. I graduated from college. So I graduated from UL in 2018, and I moved to New Zealand and stopped training completely for a couple of years.
So first question, there's 2 questions coming here now. One's a follow-up to that one. What's caused you to leave? And then the other one is, why the hesitation to race pro?
I suppose the reason I left was I was starting to not enjoy it. I'd gotten really bad heat stroke at a race earlier in the year. So there was a race in Wicklow. That was just a freak hot day. It was like, I think it was like 35 degrees or something. And you wouldn't expect that in Ireland.
No, definitely not.
And the race started at 1 p.m. So we were racing in the middle of the heat, and I just wasn't prepared for it. I'd raced the week before as well, so I'd done Hell of the West in Kilkee the week before. That was another pretty hot race. That was like high 20s, 30s. And I hadn't recovered properly. To be honest, I'd been stupid after that race. I went out straight after Kilkee and had a few drinks.
Yes. Not that we condone it, but well done.
Obviously wrote off for like 2 days after that. And then was racing again 6 days later. So that was it. It was a bit stupid, but sure, I was 22 at the time. I was just trying to enjoy it at the same time.
I've done it at 32.
Yeah. I ended up collapsing after that race in Wicklow. I actually don't remember the last 5K of the run. It was an Olympic distance, so it was a 10K run. and I didn't. My dad went to the race. I didn't realize until the day after that he'd been there because I just don't remember seeing him. And yeah, so like that took me. After that, I just didn't perform well for the rest of the year. So it wasn't. And then I sort of I'd had enough with it, to be honest. I was like, I reckon if I hadn't taken the break then, I'd have maybe done another year and packed in triathlon completely. Whereas by taking the break then, but moving to New Zealand with friends and just having a good time, like living what you'd call a normal life, just working a Monday to Friday job, going for a run maybe 2-3 times a week, and then going out on the weekend and just having good fun. That was what I needed at the time, and that's why I'm still in the sport and why I'm really enjoying it at the moment.
When you take that little bit of a break and you talk about that feeling of watching the swimmers come past, watching cycling, when you decided to get back into it, how frustrating was it? Because I go for a run now and I think, how did I ever hold 42.2 at this pace? How did I ever sit on a bike for 6 hours? And I'm only on the bike for 5 minutes. How was that from such a level to such zero, or did you maintain some foundation?
So I did maintain a little bit, but basically I came back during COVID. So I got pretty fit while there was no racing going on. So I didn't have to see everyone. I didn't have to turn up to races and get smashed. I just started training, got fit again, and then by the time there was races on, I was back to a fairly reasonable level. Swimming was obviously the one that took longest to get back because there was no pools open for like a year and a half. But no one else was swimming, so it wasn't like an issue.
Speaking of your training, and this is going to be a very long-winded question, but I want context to this one. You put a lot of detail when you're trying to train for the Ironman Cairns, the first year you got injured. You put a lot of detail in your training, your weekly reports and stuff like that, and you talked about your breakdowns. I just want to talk about week 14 because the last one I really want to talk about. You did a swim in 1 hour 48 minutes, and obviously it's hard to put the three of them together: swim, bike, and run. You probably see where I'm going with this. You did nearly like 7K on the swim doing that, and the bike you did like nearly 500K. Spent 15 hours nearly on the bike that week. You spent over 5 hours running that week, clocked over 70K. It's the last one I want to talk about. You put a lot of time and effort into the gym. That week you did 3 hours, 30 minutes. My man, I love you for that. You were spending your time doing max power exercises and rehab exercises. How important is the gym to your training?
To the actual training, I'd say not that much.
Sean's out of a job.
No, you've got the okay. Let me backtrack that. You got the swim, bike, and run.
I have a bus here, but it enables me to do the training. That's so gym is massively important for injury prevention. It's the number one reason to do gym is injury prevention. And when you're trying to train as much as I'm doing, and I have a history of lower limb injuries, so calf and Achilles issues especially, gym work is vitally important.
And where's the power work?
Once again.
Where's the power work? And you do a lot of power work as well. Is that for?
I suppose it's just trying to. I suppose it's just trying to like throw a dig in there. Gym work is important.
Well, the man has a degree in exercise sports science as well, so I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, that's what I did my thesis on in college was strength training in triathletes, and it's like strength training is surprisingly beneficial for endurance athletes. So the main thing is muscle recruitment. So it's all on a neurological level. So it like develops the neural pathways from the brain to the muscle. And as you fatigue, it's often not the muscle fatiguing, it's the neural pathways fatigue as well. And so strength training just increases STEM and you can recruit the muscles at a higher level. So gym work is very, very important. That was a bit of a slight dig that I was throwing there.
And it was one that landed so well. I couldn't have even thrown it myself.
The reaction made it worth it.
I'm gonna go back at you in this one, which changed course and that one. I got what I wanted out of that.
So did I.
Yeah, this comes almost like a slight dig back at you, and we're gonna get into the
Here we go.
breakdown of your Ironman results. Number one in Ireland doing this. So what I was doing research, and I know where they're going at it, but it just seems a bit like a dig thrown back at you to get your Irish record. There was a headline from stickybottle.com, and all it says, the headline, obviously talking about you and your incredible record. Window cleaner broke Irish record.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
No name, no, Westport man or anything like that. The main thing was window cleaner. And I know when I read more into it, it's about like just the financial burden of doing what you do. And seemingly you only went out to Perth like 7 weeks beforehand of this. And like you're out there with professional guys and you're working 4 or 5 days a week or whatever it is, doing, trying to make as much money as you can. And like I was with Eric when he bought the bike that day, 14, 16 weeks out of the Ironman. Just an astronomical amount of money that goes into it. So trying to balance the financial side with your aspirations as a professional average triathlete, like how difficult is that?
Like it's probably like number one stress in my life is the financial side of it, because like you're all the time trying to think, oh, will I work more to be able to be a bit more comfortable? But then it's like the more I work, the less you recover. Like the thing is, it's all about the recovery. Like you can work 5 days a week, 50 hours a week, and still have time to train. It's finding time to train isn't the hard part, it's finding time to recover. And it's the week on week that if you're 5% less recovered each week, than someone who's not working, then it's just slowly builds up over time. And 3 months down the line, the person who is training full time could be 10% further along in their training plan than someone who is working. But I've been really lucky with, even when I was back in Ireland, I was working for my dad. So it wasn't like I was working like 3 to 5 days a week, depending on how busy he was. Maybe even some weeks 2 days a week if he wasn't busy. So in quiet times, like say February to March, January, February, March, especially at the quiet months. So I got a really good base in then. And then over the summer, it gets much busier, so picked it up a bit. And then in September, dropped the hours down again just before I came out here to Perth. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it's like you just make do. Like you have to pay rent, you have to pay bills, you have to buy food, you have to be able to get to the races. And it's like, it's just something that you figure out how to do. Now this year I worked straight after the Ironman. Say I started working again, and I only worked for 3 months. But I worked 5 days a week, 40 plus hours a week, and just saved as much as I possibly could. And that sort of, with the few savings I had, that sort of tied me over. And I've not been working since March out here now. Even end of February. It was the end of February that I stopped working. And I've been pretty much training full time since then. So I'd say this year is the first year since I was in college that I've strung 20 plus hour weeks. I've been averaging probably over 20 hours a week training. And I don't think I even did that in college, to be fair. I'd say it's the first time in my life I've trained 20 plus hours week on week for how long is it now? For the last 5 months, I'd say. And I can notice that my fitness is at an all-time high. Like I'm just doing an easy zone, like an easy low zone 2 ride, like a 2-hour spin on the bike. It's just my power to heart rate is like powers up, power rates down. And just my overall general fitness is at a completely different level than it was when I was having to like balance the training and the work. But that being said, I have 3 races now coming up over the next 2 months. And if I don't get some prize money at them, I'm pretty screwed.
Well, if ever motivation was
I've dipped
needed.
into some loans there, and yeah, that's the motivation now to do well, is to not be in debt when they get home.
This is a curiosity question, and it's not to take a dig at organizations or anything, but you have a professional license, you're going to professional races, because I know from
Yeah.
an age grouper, it's a very expensive. You're paying for
Yeah.
the privilege to spend more money when you arrive, and that's essentially what it is. And Sean got first front row seats to even when we arrived at the Ironman, the money that was spent, to buy the
It's
nice things.
bonkers.
As a
Yeah.
professional licensed racer, are there any perks? Are there any supports? Are there any benefits? Or is it the same gig?
So the top guys, definitely. So once you get to, say, people who are competing for the win, they'd be most of the time put up in a hotel. Some races would pay them an appearance fee on top of that. Some races would pay for their travel, and then they'd get the prize money on top of that as well. But for someone at my level who doesn't really have a name for themselves, and the main thing is, it's not even a name, it's more social media following, because that's what draws in people. To say someone who has 30,000 followers on Instagram, if they're posting, I'm doing X race on the weekend, that's going to pull people into the race. Like 20 people might just go purely to watch them. And then 5 of them might buy 150 € worth of gear from the Ironman merch store. So that's the sort of, it's more the Instagram following, I think, that
It's the popularity backed by talent
yeah,
that
the
gets you
influence,
the.
like you'd have people racing in the age group race could get them same benefits, because some of them might have 100,000 plus followers, and they're pulling in massive amounts of attention. Like, what's the word? They like coverage. Like, they just get so much coverage for the actual race that it's in the race's benefit to give them the perks. But for someone like me, there's not much. They're not going to get anywhere near as much back off me as they would have someone else like that. But that's something I'm like trying to work on. The Instagram side of things is something I wouldn't say I dislike it. It doesn't seem genuine to me. I find it very, very hard to be genuine on it and to come across as myself. And I feel like it's a constant self promotion. And I don't like self promoting myself. I prefer to just get on with things and just leave all that in the background. But it's something that you can't leave in the background. It has to be done, unfortunately.
And it's been a topic other athletes have spoke about on this, is the Irishness of the self promotion and the
Yeah.
I just do what I do. I don't want to put it out there for everyone, but
Yeah,
I didn't
it's an
realize
Irish
even on
trait.
I didn't even realize even on that level that it was that
Yeah.
extreme as well. We'll probably have to run a campaign now of everyone who listens has to get 5 friends to give you a follow on Instagram between now and the next race. Otherwise, you're going to prison for not paying your loans.
That'd be amazing.
But it is interesting and how social media, I suppose, is influencing sporting and sporting support and sponsorship. And it used to be talent that used to get
Yeah,
sponsorship because winning a race or competing at a high level was good enough. But now it's also, are you popular enough as well as talented enough?
yeah, that's it. It's all like every athlete nowadays is also an influencer. That's the way you sort of have to look at it. If you want to be an athlete, you also have to be an influencer. And it's not enough to just do your training and turn up on race day as fit as possible. You also have to like announce it to the world and then like share it. When you do well, you have to share it and go, oh, look at me. And it's like, I'm sure there's more to it than that. And some people do a really good job. And there's a few people that I'd follow who I'm like, I don't quite know how they do it, but they do come across as like themselves. I don't know if you follow Daniel Beckergaard. He's the guy who actually won the Ironman I did in December. He just seems like he's having fun, but he's a really, really nice guy. Like talking to him after the race, he was like, oh man, you did so well. That was like, he knew it was my first time, and he's like, came up to me and was like, "That's such a good result for your first Ironman." And it's like, when you have someone like that who's just a really nice guy, and then they can come across as that on their Instagram, it's like that's the secret to being successful. But I don't quite like it. I see all his posts and I'm like, why can't I do that? But it's like there's just something there that I like can't quite figure out, if you get me.
I suppose even getting training partners now, it's like, I need you to, pace me on a run. But by the way, can you hold the video camera as well to
Yeah.
record me while I'm doing this? I have one hand on the bike and one hand going downhill, catch me in the right position. Like
Yeah.
I can only imagine how tough that part of all that is. On
Yeah.
top of everything else you're worried about.
Yeah. I try to get my girlfriend to come out cycling with me while I run, just to be the paparazzi. But,
this is why Eric
yeah.
does a turbo trainer. He sets up the camera in the corner.
Yeah, I don't have to get anyone to take photos of me in a pink, but it's definitely a lot easier. But I suppose as part of that as well, and that's the beauty of this podcast, people get to see the you behind the athlete, behind the images. And I suppose we're still on that. That record that you got, did you notice the social media increase? Did you notice the attention change now that your name was being published back here in Ireland and after the great successes?
Oh yeah, like going into the race, I think I had less than around 600 followers. Again, and then it went up to well over 1,000. And I don't know, they're not massive numbers compared to a lot of people, but for me that was like a huge jump. And especially the posts I made about the race, they got massive engagement. I think the first post I put up got over 400 likes, which is I don't think it means much, but it was just interesting to see how many people actually were like, oh, congrats. It was nice to see, it was nice to get a bit of recognition. I'll be honest, everyone does enjoy a bit of recognition, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It feels good to be told, oh, good job. And when you're having people you don't even know telling you, it's it is nice. But yeah, I think I've been talking to a few people about this sort of the social media side of things, and they're just you just have to, it's basically like training. You need to just be consistent doing it. And even if you're feeling this is a bit silly, you just have to throw up a post. And it's all just about being consistent and slowly building the following organically, as opposed to trying to, I don't know, just hoping that it just kind of magically appear from nowhere.
Well, you're very honest in your posts anyway. You can see that in your training, when you're struggling with your calf injury and stuff, and when you had to pull out in the race a couple of weeks ago in June, unfortunately, you can see your honesty comes across in that. But let's talk about the main event here. Let's talk about this, because when you were talking about swimming earlier, and you were talking about 1:10 at a 15 pace or whatever, 6:19 of whatever that thing was, I wasn't too sure, but even I recognize a 3.9 kilometer swim you did that day was in 47 minutes and 46 seconds. Not too sure I could walk that pace. That is phenomenal. Your cycle, 180K cycle, 4 hours, 11 minutes and 31 seconds. And then you did a sub 3 on a marathon with 2 hours, 54 minutes to get that record. And you knocked, what was it? 8:07 was the record before that. So you knocked a good 8-9 minutes off the original Irish record. That day setting out, was it just to get the best race you could, or was sub 8 on the cards that day?
Yeah, so I'd been saying for about the previous 2 months I wanted to go sub 8. I hadn't told many people. I think I probably only told 5 or 6 people. When I told my mom, she was like, "Are you sure?" Yeah, but no, I think most people going in. I knew the course is fast. It is a very fast course. It's pan flat. The bike course, especially, you couldn't get a flatter course. I think there's less than 50 meters elevation gain over the 180K. The one thing is there's a lot of U-turns, so that does slow you down a little. There was, I think, it was 2 laps, and I think there was 6 or 7 U-turns per lap. And the other thing is, which you wouldn't quite realize, I think a flatter course can almost be harder than slightly undulating, because you're under power all the time. I don't think if the only time I freewheeled was 2 seconds into a turnaround, and then you're straight back on the power again.
It's a turbo trainer race, essentially. Yeah.
Perfect for you, Eric. Head down to Busselton.
A turbo train would be the perfect way to prepare for this race, because it is literally just sitting on your bike, holding constant power. There's no surges. There's no need to push out. There's no little hills. There's nothing that you'd have to go any harder for. It's just constant power. But yeah, like, back to the question with sub 8. Yeah, like, I knew if everything went my way, I won't say I knew. I was hopeful if everything went my way that I'd be able to get sub 8. I knew I say no, knew, but I was confident.
You did. Go on.
There we go.
Social media training. You did know. You believed.
I was confident I could swim front pack. Yeah, like, I'd done pretty good swim block in the lead up to it, and I was confident I could stay in front pack. And then once you're out on the bike, being 5th, 6th in line, even leaving 12 meters, like, say for the first 10K we had a tailwind and we were going like 50k an hour. So when you're 6th in line going 50k an hour, the person on the front might be doing 330 watts, say. But you sitting in I might only be doing 270. There's the faster you're going, even with 12 meters between every bike, there's such a benefit for being in the group. And that's what I wanted to make sure was I'd stay in the group. And I did stay in the front group until like 115k. I stayed in the front group, and then I did get dropped. And then from there on, it was all about doing just my own power, staying as aero as possible, and just trying to hold the pace. But like, to talk about how much I dropped off, the first 90k when I was in the front group, we went through the first 90k in like 2 hours and 30 seconds. And then second 90k was like 2:11. And that was so like the first 90k we were 45k an hour average speed. And then I dropped off a bit. The others dropped off slightly as well. I think they ended up doing like about maybe a 4:02 for the bike. But then one of the guys, Matt Burton, who came second on the day, he was 5 minutes down out of the water, but he biked 3:57. So he averaged like 43.3k an hour for 180k.
On his own, essentially, without the benefit of the front pack.
There was one other guy with him. So he had another guy, Nick Thompson. So the two of them did about first 100. I think they did 150k together. And then Matt Burton pushed on in the last 30k. But Nick Thompson still biked like 2:59 or something like. So the two of them worked together really well. And then Matt Burton pushed on in the last 30k. But yeah, it's phenomenal speed they're going.
43, and then to go and do a sub 3 hour marathon after that, going at those paces.
Yeah.
Not even a question. That's just bananas.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to sound like, I don't know, come across.
Go on, do it.
Do it.
It's not that fast. Like, when you look at the times a lot of people are running, like say the winner, Daniel Beckergaard, ran in 2:37. And so I'm hoping this year now to run like sub 2:48. So 2:48 is 4-minute pace. I don't see any reason why you can't hold like 3:57 pace. Because it's not aerobically taxing. So physiologically, it's not. The main issue is muscle breakdown. So my feet and my legs were in pain. That's what was stopping me. It wasn't, once you eat and drink enough on the bike and the run, and you keep on top of your hydration, keep on top of your calorie intake, you're gonna have the energy. And then it's purely about managing the muscle breakdown in your calves, in your quads. And then I have bad feet, like I have bunions on my feet. It's just unlucky genetics. And my feet start to ache after about 2 hours of running. And then after about 2.5 hours, they were throbbing. And I don't know what I can do for that. It's just something I have to put up
You
with.
need to run. You need to run faster, obviously.
That's it.
You'll be finished in 2.5 hours.
Get it down to 2.5 hours, and all that pain will go
Yeah.
away.
No bother there. I'll
What
note
does
that
it-
down for future.
Is that part? Is that part of? Now, this is coming from someone who hasn't run under 3.5 marathon on an only effort, but is that part of the plan as you progress as an athlete? Now, look, what you've done is amazing, but you've obviously this is day one. This is day one
Yeah.
Ironman for you. Is this part of the greater plan? You're a very humble guy, and I know it's going to be difficult for you to say, but there's a plan. There has to be a plan,
Yeah.
otherwise you wouldn't still
There
be
is, yeah.
participating. Are those goals and aspirations to start getting towards that 2:30,
So-
closer to that side?
Yeah, so I don't see, like, say for when I ran at 2:54, I'd had 10 weeks of running. So I tore my calf in July 2023, and I had about 8 weeks no running at all, and then another couple of weeks slowly building into it. And I say I only had 10 weeks of proper running in the lead up to that 2:54. So it's like, if I can go a full year with no injuries and consistently running 60 to 70k a week, I don't see any reason why I can't run a low 2:40. And as they say, the saying in triathlon is, you bike for show, you run for dough. And you need to be able to run quick to be successful, mainly because pack dynamics on the bike is, only the uber bikers are ever going to win on the bike. Someone, like you said, like that Matt Burton, he actually won in Cairns there a few weeks ago. So only certain people are going to actually be able to put in enough time on the bike to be able to win the race on the bike. Whereas you need to be able to do, if you're not running a low 2:40 marathon off the bike these days, you're not even going to get top 5. Like, the run times in Ironman have just gone bananas. I don't know how many people have gone sub 2:40 for marathon in the Ironman now. It's probably like 20 different people have run under 2:40 for an Ironman for marathon. Like last year in Challenge Roth, Patrick Langer ran 2:30. He was 20 seconds or something off breaking 2:30. So the times are just getting faster and faster. And I think the biggest reason for that are shoes. Like,
yeah, true. Yeah, it's been the biggest increase.
Yeah, like if you've ran a marathon and you haven't worn top of the range carbon shoes, you're missing out, because like it's a huge improvement, and especially for Ironman running, where you're running fatigued, just that cushioning, that level of cushioning, it's a game changer.
Just getting that spring, I suppose, in the step. And is that, like, has training philosophies changed since, like, I know it got big in the 80s and stuff like that, currently reading a book on it. But is that what it is, that you think the main difference is down to just technology? Like Eric was talking to me more about spending a lot of money on like swimsuits, and you had to spend more money the week of his Ironman, and just whatever material stuff is in the swimsuits make it a little bit faster. Obviously the bikes have gotten better. Is it just down to not just obviously the work styles we put in, but just the technology of the bikes now, and the runners and the gear is the difference that's getting these faster times?
I think there's multiple things. So I think the 3 biggest things are, the bike equipment, the runners, and then nutrition. So it's probably only in the last, say, 5 years, isn't it, since Morton were the game changers. So before, like when I first started triathlon, like 12 years ago now, it was like 60 grams of carbs, and now it was like on the high end. Now you're looking at 120 grams of carbs.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not, like, I named Morton, like, they're crazy expensive. There's better brands out there, better value brands out there, I'd say. Morton are good, but there's better value brands out there. Precision Fuel and Hydration are the ones I use. Like, I'll just throw them out there. They can get a free plug, even though.
We'll make sure to tag them in it, so they might sponsor your next race.
Yeah, but yeah, like like you can just put so much fuel away that you're not getting tired. It's
Mm.
more, it goes back to what you're anatomically capable of now rather than what you're physiologically capable of.
Mm.
It's, well, that's what I find anyway. I don't know if like other people are like that, but that's what I find is the biggest drawback. When you're getting on the run, it's literally just how robust you are then. If you can, if your legs can physically handle it, it's not to do with I don't have the energy. Like I've been more tired I was more exhausted, say, after doing a half Ironman in 2017 than I was after doing the Ironman from a like energy standpoint. I was obviously a lot sore after doing the Ironman, but just from a pure energy point of view, doing a half Ironman back in 2017 left me more tired.
Mm.
So the nutrition side of things, I think the nutrition is probably the biggest factor for these fast times. Like you're talking about an 8 hour race, well, 7.5 to 8 hours. And if you can fully fuel that on glucose, well, not glucose, but like all the different sugars, and then convert it to glucose, it's just a massive, massive improvement. Whereas back in the day, they just weren't physically able to go as hard because they're having to stay predominantly fat burning because you just couldn't absorb enough sugar to provide the energy you needed. And it's also, sitting day-to-day training. So say I can do a 4 hour ride, like today, now I did bonk, as I said earlier. But that's because I stopped at the shop and my phone wouldn't tap. So technology letting me down that time. I said technology helped and technology let me down. But if I brought gels and proper food with me, I could do a 4 hour ride and go so much harder, fully fueled by taking in 120 grams an hour. I can go hard for 4 hours, come back fully fueled, not feel that fatigued, get in a bit more food when I get home, and I can go again tomorrow. So you can just back up your training day after day after day that much better, just by fueling the sessions that much better.
And getting those 4 hour rides and stuff like that in now means that there must be a goal for next. What's the next race?
I'm doing the World Triathlon Long Course World Champs in Townsville in, geez, so 3 weeks away now, 25th of August. So that's going to be my first time representing Ireland since 2016, I think. So that's back in Ireland. Because
How does that feel?
Itself, when you're racing Ironman, you're not technically representing your country. It's only you're like a single entity, whereas this World Triathlon, because World Triathlon are organising it, I'm back representing Ireland, which will be nice.
How does it feel to be? Does it carry more than just being the entity to be representing Ireland? Does it carry weight for you?
I suppose it does, yeah. Like putting on an Irish tri-suit is like it's always a big deal. Like it's nice. And the fact that you have to earn the spot, it's like it's not just you don't just go out and get given it. You have to earn the spot. Yeah, it's pretty nice feeling, to be honest. I haven't really thought about it that much. Like to me it is just another race. But when I do, now you said it, it is like I like Ireland. Like it's a good country, and especially seeing everyone doing so well at the Olympics at the moment, it's like there's a bit of national pride there, all right. And it's going to be nice to put on the green tri-suit again.
With that Australian weather you have, I'd say it's a good country to be from.
There's definitely a lot of positives about Ireland. You have to leave to realize how good it is, I think.
And the one thing about it is though as well with a lot of athletes to be competing against the world, Ireland has its benefits, but in terms of year-round training benefits, outdoors and pools and facilities, we're a bit behind. So in the likes of Perth, you're 15 degrees in the winter, you're a little bit cold, but you can still get out, you can still do things. And a lot of our athletes are going to universities in the US. They are they're getting into the other cultures where athletes are progressing and are training and they have the facilities. And I suppose, is that part of your plan as well, is to stay in those kind of places where that athletic lifestyle is helping boost you? Is it helping boost you a little bit, or is it all just, I'll find a way? If I was at home in Mayo, or if I was in Perth, I'll find a way? Or is it making it easier?
Yeah, it's definitely easy to get training done. Like, especially year round, like we've had a bit of rain. I think that's particularly wet winter compared to usual over here. So we've had like a lot, say on average, we probably get like 3-4 days of rain a week at the moment. So it is that bit wetter than usual. But in the summer, you'd have 2 months of no rain. And it's like just you get up on say I do my long rides on a Saturday morning. You just get up on a Saturday morning, put on a shorts and jersey and just go out. And there's not even a think like, oh, do I need to bring a gilet with me in case it rains? Do I need to bring arm warmers with me in case it rains? It's like, and you're going to get 6 hours of just spinning along in the sun. And it's like you were saying earlier, you don't realize how much more energy you burn when it's cold. Like, I've only noticed it out here since I got caught in a couple of rain showers, that like my watts had dropped by 20 to 30 watts just as soon as it starts raining and I get a bit cold. And my watts just instantly drop because I'm obviously having to use so much more energy then to keep me warm. And so when you're training in a warm climate, I feel you're constantly putting out that little bit more power, and that's gonna just have a lead on effect over time. Because that's all training is. Training is just week on week on week, slowly improving. It's not about doing like a hero session and being like, geez, I smashed that. Like, it doesn't matter. One session to the next doesn't matter. It's what you do week on week on week is where you're going to actually get the improvements.
And lastly, I suppose you really love what you do. And a lot of athletes say, my lifestyle is sport. It is that. You've kind of said, you know what, I actually enjoyed my little bit of party and my sport. What is it for you now? And what is that break away from it that keeps you in love and so in love with this sport now?
Yeah, like I think at my core, I'm super competitive. And so it's that competitiveness that's driving me. Yeah, like I love competing. And I've got to this point now where I know if I want to compete successfully, I can't half-ass things. So that's what I felt like. I felt like I was doing that all through my time in college. I was training, I was studying, and I was trying to be social. And I was doing all three somewhat well, but I was half-assing everything at the same time. Like I wasn't being super social. I did all right in college. I wouldn't say I did amazing. I definitely didn't apply myself anywhere near as much as I could have. And then I trained pretty hard, but again, I could have been a lot more dedicated to it. And I don't know if you heard of Greg Bennett. He does a pretty good podcast, I think. Greg Bennett.
Second best podcast. Yeah, I heard about it.
Yeah. He's I don't know how many world titles he's won. He won all the biggest races. He won all the non-drafting races in America. And I really like how he says, do things with intent. So that's what I'm just trying to do now, is like, I'm fully intentional in my training to get to where I want. And I've realized I suppose the air sacrifice, because I do enjoy being social. I do enjoy going out, having a few pints, but you can't do that. And like, I've codded myself in the past going, oh yeah, I'll have 4 pints and going home and getting a decent night's sleep, I'm fine the next day. But you're not. Like, you might feel you're fine, but when you look at the training data, like if you look at your heart rate might be up a little bit, your power might be down a little bit, your run times might be down a little bit, and it's just not good for you. And so I might do that once every 3 months now, because that's more like a mental benefit. And I need that for my mental side. So you can't just be like 100% a monk just doing nothing. But you definitely have to know when is the right time. And in the lead up to races, I wouldn't even think about having a drink now. Whereas I remember when I was back in college, like I went to a 3-day music festival the week before the national champs, and I was like, yeah, I'll be grand. And I suppose the thing with getting older as well, you can't handle, you don't recover as quickly. So I was like, but yeah, I don't regret any of that. Like, he had a good time, and I think it's led me to where I am now with the full appreciation for what I'm able to do, and the full, like, it's 100% what I want to do now. Whereas before it sort of felt like, oh, I'm just doing this because I'm good at it.
And this next race obviously is something you've been working on. You've coming back from injury, and this next race is something that's there. And from that again, is this the next springboard into the future for you?
Yeah, so this, like, I'm treating this race as more like just a comeback race, no expectations. I just want to do it, get through it injury free, and then just move on to next. So my big goal for this year now is going to be Ironman Malaysia in October. So that, yeah, pro race in Malaysia. I want to do well in it. Like, I want to. I'm not going to quite tell you how well I want to do.
Go on, no one listens to this podcast.
Give us the exclusive. Give us the exclusive. Just two of us. Just two of us. Not even recording.
Yeah, like a podium. Like, I want a podium.
Right.
Okay.
Like, and really, I want top two. So top two qualifies for world champs next year. So the men's world champs are in Nice next year, not Kona. So they move each year now. I'd have loved to go to Kona, but Nice will be a not bad, what do you call it, consolation. Like that is the goal, I suppose. But at the same time, I don't go in with sole focus of this is what I want. So I go in with the idea, I'm prepared as well as I possibly can. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to do as well as I can. So I'm going to make sure my swim's good. I'm going to make sure my transitions are good. I'm going to get out on the bike, and I'm going to assess the situation, and then I'm going to hold my power and just make sure I have as good a race as possible. And I'm hoping that if I have as good a race as possible, it'll get me what I want. But if it doesn't, then so be it. It's like, as long as I feel I've done everything I possibly can, then that's what I class as a good result. But the results are why you're in it at the end of the day. Like, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I'm just happy with turning up and having a good race. I'm not. I want to do well. I want to get what I class as good results. I want success. And yeah,
and I suppose that's the beauty of it, is preparation takes away your nerves, and then the race is the race, and what happens, and the post-mortem can happen afterwards to find out. But it's absolutely amazing. We are excited to see where this goes.
There's no harm with nerves either, though. I think, like, I'd get nervous, but I think I reframed the nerves as excitement. It's like, if you're not feeling nervous, then you're not doing it properly. It doesn't mean enough. If you're not turning up and race day, like, you're feeling the butterflies in your stomach, it's like, this race obviously doesn't mean anything to you then, and why you're doing it. And that happened to me a few times, and I ended up having pretty average races because I was turning up and I was like, laddie la, and chat, like, pretty much no nerves whatsoever, and I didn't have good results. Whereas when you turn up on race day and you're like say the morning of the Ironman down in Busselton, I was shitting it, to be honest. I was like, and I had a few friends down with me, and my girlfriend Maeve was there as well. And I was like just sitting on a chair, and like I couldn't really speak to them. I was like, what the hell have I signed myself up for? As soon as you get going, it's like, this is brilliant. This is amazing. Like, this is what I'm doing it for.
Turning the nerves to excitement. It's almost like with the right messenger, that makes sense to Eric. But whenever I've said to him, he just goes, shut up, Sean, you're making no sense. And that's why you should do more social media posts, because he listens to you, not to me. And on that note, Aichlinn O'Reilly, it's been fantastic listening to you on the podcast this week. Best luck in Malaysia coming up in October.
Thank you. Thanks a million.
It's been absolutely fabulous having you on. It's all we are very aware we've taken an hour out of a very busy schedule, and it's been fantastic having you on. We hope to maybe get you on towards the end of the year, into the new year, to keep the listeners up to date with all the great work you're doing.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll have some good updates.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Myself, Aichlinn, and Eric. Take care.
Cheers.